Welcome to More Living with Jim Brogan, your source of information for living the best years of your life your way. For more than a decade, host Jim Brogan and his expert guests have come together each week to share important news and advice that can impact the lives and well-being of those who are retired and those nearing retirement. Learn about issues like health and fitness, financial planning, Social Security benefits, investment advice, and more. And now, here's the host of More Living, Jim Brogan.
Good morning, East Tennessee. Welcome to More Living with Jim Brogan, where it's all about living the best years of your life your way. This is News Talk 98.7 WOKI, and you know the winter weather has kind of come upon us, and temperatures have been falling, and I know for me that means turning up the heat, maybe having an electric blanket, and building a nice home fire. I love to build a fire. It's one of my favorite things to do. But believe it or not, according to the National Fire Protection Association, November, December, and January are the months for the most fires in the home every year. You know, home fires are devastating, and the Knoxville area has actually experienced multiple house and apartment fires over the past few months, including 2 just last week, and then one over last weekend where a firefighter sustained injuries. Almost all fires are preventable, and the devastation of fires can take months or even years to recover from. So I'm thrilled this morning to have Daniel Corcoran, or DJ Corcoran, from the City of Knoxville Fire Department. He is the Community Relations Officer for the city's fire department. He's been with the City of Knoxville for over 25 years, and he is the official spokesman for the fire department. Good morning, DJ. Welcome to More Living. It's great to have you with us.
Good morning, Jim. Thank you. Glad to be here.
It's great to have you. So, first off, when we think about, I want to talk a little bit about cleaning our fireplaces. Mm-hmm. You know, when we think of a chimney sweep, it makes me think back, you know, we all think back to Mary Poppins and chimney sweeps on top of the houses. But, you know, these days, a lot of people don't really think about having their chimney swept or serviced. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of that? How often should we be cleaning our fireplaces? Is there a difference in a gas and a log fireplace? Talk to us about the main things we ought to be aware of.
There is. There's a big difference between gas and if you're using true logs, to burn and heat your home with. Gas burns a little bit cleaner. You're not going to have the soot build up, the creosote that builds up inside the chimney walls as you do when you're burning wood. What we recommend is if you're going to do that you ought to do it at least every season, or every other season at least, to have someone come out and professionally look in your chimney, an old chimney sweep with the old stick and the bristles that go down, and clean that soot, that creosote that builds up inside your chimney walls. Get that cleaned off, because what happens is that buildup in there, when you have a fire, it can actually burn that creosote, and you have a chimney fire. Instead of the fire being down in the fireplace where it's supposed to stay, it will climb into that wall, and you have a fire up high in your chimney where it runs through your attic and places. So you don't want that. So in order to keep that from happening, we recommend that you have somebody come out and inspect your chimney at least every couple seasons. Depends a lot on how much wood you're actually burning and how much you depend on that chimney or on that fireplace as your means of heating your home.
Now, DJ, I know growing up, my dad, we had this big fireplace. Brick went up the whole wall, and we loved to build a fire. And it seemed like back in those days, a little bit of a chimney fire, sometimes I had learned was not a bad thing. But then recently, since I've had my own wood-burning fireplace, we hear, a chimney fire can be so bad. And actually, our neighbors had a chimney fire, and it ended up spreading into their attic, and luckily they were able to catch it, in time to keep from doing too much damage, but it did a pretty significant amount of damage up in the attic and that part of the house. So I guess really we should keep it clean enough that there's never a chimney fire. Is that right?
Correct. Because what happens that creosote builds up, and you have mortar in between. A lot of times, whether it's a full brick flue, or if you have like tile flues, there's mortar in between there where they join together, and that creosote and that buildup will actually cause it to kind of like decay, and you'll have gaps in between where you shouldn't have it, where it should be a solid flue all the way up. You'll get gaps in between it where it's actually caused that mortar to sort of rot out in between the joint.
And that fire that fire then can get through there.
A little spark is all it takes, and it'll sit and smolder for hours, and it could sometimes we'll see that, and say, well, what's the last time? It was 2 days ago we had a fire in the fireplace, and then you're seeing a fire in the attic area or somewhere up above, a couple of days later. So it can lay and smolder for hours and sometimes days.
Now, a chimney sweep, it seems like our chimney sweep, because we like to have somebody come up every single year. And so I guess every season instead of every 2 seasons. But we build, I burn a fire 4 to 6 days a week in my fireplace. It's one of my very, very favorite things in the winter. It seems like they always just go up from the bottom. They're going through my main opening of my fireplace to sweep the chimney. How important is it to come down from the top and clean out that cap area?
Well, either way, they're professionals, so whichever method they choose to obtain into the flue, whether it's through the bottom up or from the top down, just getting a thorough cleaning up and down that flue is what's recommended.
Should be plenty. Okay. Now, if somebody has a natural gas, of course, nowadays all these houses that are built, most people have gas fireplaces. Do you still have some dangers? What type of dangers do we have with a gas fireplace?
Well, gas is going to be a lot cleaner. You're not going to have that residue, that soot build up because it's burning pure. But some things that you might be of concern are if you don't have a flame in there, if your pilot light burns out or some things like that, where it possibly, lets gas into your home. But KUB has got a really good system, their gas division and all, to eliminate that from happening. And there's an automatic, where it cuts off if your pilot light burns out, that the gas isn't going to keep, spewing out into your home. But that's some of the concerns that people have with gas. Not to say that it's, that they're right in being worried about that, but like I said, it's still a concern for people.
Yeah, we really, I would think just overall we always have to stay on top of maintenance with all these things, I would think. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, DJ.
Oh, I was just going to say that other methods sometimes people still have kerosene heaters, and that's something that's a alternative method of heating, and you just have to be really careful about that. Read the directions, read the recommendations on the unit itself, and what they ask is that you leave a window cracked because you're burning something inside, which creates carbon monoxide. And if you don't have proper ventilation, then you can be overcome by the vapors, the fumes of carbon monoxide. So that's one of the concerns that you have to have and that's a different type of gas. It's not the natural gas, but it's a kerosene gas, actual liquid gas.
Now, another thing is, I know in the wintertime, we think about space heaters, not only in the home, at work. I know office heating systems tend to be terribly inconsistent from room to room. A lot of people have electric blankets in the wintertime, and a lot of people put out candles for ambiance and things like that. So right. What are the rules for some of these other things, especially the space heaters and electric blankets?
Well, for space heaters, you want to keep a 3-foot radius from any radiant heat. whether that's a fireplace, you want to still keep about 3 foot around it. If it's a space heater, you want to keep 3 foot away from it. Don't put it up against the back of a couch or near curtains or draperies. Some of these homes that have the automatic heat that comes on, like a space heater that's in the wall, or a space heater that's, like the baseboard heaters like you used to see. There's still some homes that have those, and they're on a thermostat, and they come on when the temperature drops to a certain level. And that's great in the wintertime when you're thinking, hey, I want to stay warm, and you've pulled everything away from it. But sometimes people after the winter month, they forget that heater is still on automatic, and they've pushed things back up. It's not coming on because the temperatures are not down to where it comes on. But they'll forget about it, and it lays dormant there for months. And then the first cold snap you have, when fall weather starts back, that's when we see a lot of fires from things like that, just people not thinking about those automatic thermostats when that heater comes on automatically, and they push things back up against them.
Yeah. Now, what about electric blankets?
Electric blankets they're fine to have. You just have to be really careful with them. Make sure that you read the manufacturer's suggestions, the recommendations, what they ask for that product in order for that product to be safe. So the best thing that I think that you can do with any kind of electrical appliance, whether it's a blanket, a blender, anything that's used in your kitchen, when you're not using it, unplug it. I know that's a little bit of a hassle, but anything that's manufactured has a tendency or has a possibility to malfunction. And we see a lot of fires from electrical devices that have malfunctioned.
We're visiting this morning. Absolutely. We're visiting this morning with DJ Corcoran. He's Community Relations Officer for the Knoxville City Fire Department, or the Knoxville Fire Department. And as I mentioned, we typically have more house fires in November, December, and January than any other time of the year. So when we come back, we're going to talk about our heat and air units, and how do those maybe contribute to fires? How can we keep those maintained properly, even how we position our furniture? So do stay with us as we visit with DJ Corcoran. This is More Living with Jim Brogan, only on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
You are listening to More Living with Jim Brogan. During the week, Jim is a financial advisor, an author and speaker with an MBA from the University of Tennessee, who specializes in helping people in or near retirement plan for the next phase of their lives. You can reach Brogan Financial during the week at 865-862-6800 or on the web at broganfinancial.com. And now, here's Senior Market Advisor Magazine's 2011 National Advisor of the Year and host of More Living, Jim Brogan.
Welcome back to More Living here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. I'm Jim Brogan, and we're talking fire safety this week. Fire safety is so important, and this is a time of year we have typically the most amount of fires in the homes and even in businesses, but especially in the homes. And this week, we've got DJ Corcoran on with us. He's Community Relations Officer with the Knoxville Fire Department. And we're talking about fire safety. I can't think of many more important topics to talk about this time of year. DJ, let's talk about our heating systems. How often should we have our heating systems checked and serviced?
That's one of the things, like central heat and air units, they're generally pretty safe. But you do have to, maintenance is required on those units. And what we see probably most of when it comes to that is just where somebody hasn't had it maintained. And the things that you might see are just a unit that's overworking, belts that could burn out or cause belts to burn out on a unit, or a unit seizing up. And a lot of those things can be prevented if people would, keep those units cleaned out, like your outside unit where the fan is. there's looks like a radiator almost around that. Those should be cleaned out, especially here in East Tennessee. You get a lot of pollen, with spring and fall. So about every fall, you should, clean, leaves. If you mow grass during the summer, any of that stuff that collects in that radiator type material that's around your outdoor fan makes your unit work harder. Sometimes you have like split units, and those split units there's condensation, and they have a drip pan, and sometimes those drip pans, if a lot of times they're in attic areas. You'll have a split unit where it's in an attic area, and there's no heat in the attic. So those drip pans, if they haven't been properly maintained and they're clogged, then you can have freezing water, and then it's still pulling condensation out of the air, and that's where that drip pan, and then it overflow, and then you have a water problem, electrical problem. You have lights and stuff like that in your ceiling, and then that water comes down from that drip pan and causes problems in your lighting fixtures and can cause a fire there, shorting out. So there's things like that you see, but like from the central heat and air units. Those are some things that and proper maintenance can prevent all that stuff.
Now, what about floor registers and how we place our furniture if we put any other items on the floor register? What's the danger there?
Well, if it's like just a central heat and air unit where it's just blowing warm air, that's blowing from a unit that's not really close to there. So you're not really concerned with radiant heat like you would be from a heater or a fireplace causing a fire. That's usually just warm air at 68 to 72 degrees. So if that's the register you're talking about, that type of register. Now there's other
yes, sir,
types,
sure is.
The ones like the baseboard heaters. That's actually a coil that heats inside there, and it produces radiant heat, and getting something too close to that can actually cause a fire from the radiant heat.
Sure. Now, what about our air filters? That's something it seems like different people feel differently about how often we should change our our filters. How big a part can that play in fire vulnerability?
Well, usually about every 3 months you can change them. Some people that might have dogs or pets that create a lot of dander, or if depends on the lifestyle, I guess, some people may need to change theirs every month. Some, at least every 3 months. But there again, changing those can reduce the amount of work required by your unit. So you're going to save electricity by properly cleaning those and regularly cleaning those. And then two, you're going to the wear and tear on your unit, because it has to work harder to pull that air through all the nasty in the filter. So it's best to change those filters depending on, like I said, what type of lifestyle you have, but at least every 3 months.
Sure. Yeah, I know when I was younger, fresh out of college, I didn't always stay on top of those things the way I probably should have. It's something I realized once I married my wife and got to know her daddy, who he pretty much built his house from the ground up. I wasn't real mechanical growing up. But anyway, that was funny when I first learned.
College life's a lot different, isn't it? I mean, you
yeah, it sure is.
If it doesn't stink, you think, okay, it's clean.
Yeah, that's right.
And if the pizza's not, if the pizza hadn't been there too long and it's not, stale, then it's still edible.
There's there's not something growing on it. Yeah.
Right.
Now, hey, let's talk about our smoke detectors. Those batteries can sometimes become a real nuisance. When they start beeping in the middle of the night, we don't always think about changing out the batteries. So what is your recommendation? How often should we be changing our smoke detector batteries?
Well, we would always send out notification to folks, in the spring and in the fall when you changed your clock, springing forward and falling back was a good reminder to change your batteries in your smoke alarms. But now they make smoke alarms. They have a 10-year battery, and it's not really a battery that you can actually pull out. You just replace the whole smoke alarm, and they're good for 10 years.
I need to get one of those, that's for sure.
Yeah. Now that's the ones that you just place, but now there's a lot of smoke alarms. There are different kinds of smoke alarms. There's the ionization, and then there's the the way they detect smoke. There's some like that will actually, particles break a beam, kind of like the old stores, like when you'd walk in, there was a beam on each side of the door. When you broke that beam, it set off an alarm and let the clerk know that somebody was there. But their smoke alarms the same way, and when particles of carbon break that beam, it'll set the alarm off. And then there's some that are ionization type detectors, and it detects particles like on a plate. And when they detect those particles, it'll set the alarm off. Both of those are excellent smoke alarms. But then you have some that are, that they're wired in, they're daisy chained. So if one goes off in your garage, it will set them all off, which is a good system. And they've been doing that since '95. So if you're in a home that was built after '95, it's going to have those pre-wired smoke detectors with a battery backup. So those are all good. And we have a program in the city of Knoxville. If someone doesn't have a smoke alarm and it's a single family dwelling, if it's not a business, apartment complexes, or a business, and you're just a single family dwelling, you can contact 311. Makes it easy to remember, 311, and leave them, message, your address, what you're calling about, and the City of Knoxville Fire Department will come out and install smoke alarms free of charge for you.
Now, since we're talking about detectors, DJ, what about carbon monoxide poisoning? I mean, I know it's not very common, but it does happen. So talk to us a little bit about what causes that and how it can be prevented.
Well, anything that is a combustible, like I say, the kerosene heaters, where you actually have a flame and there's a combustible, or an engine that emits byproduct, which is carbon monoxide. That's going to set off a carbon monoxide detector, and those are good to have because carbon monoxide is what we refer to as the silent killer. It's odorless. You can't taste it. It will actually attach to your blood cells better than oxygen. So whenever somebody breathes that in, it's going to displace the oxygen that's trying to get to your blood cells, or that it normally would attach to your blood cells, and get to your body, to your muscles, to your heart, to your brain, and it's going to be a slow death. So carbon monoxide is a real threat. And some of the symptoms that you'll see with carbon monoxide is like people say, I feel achy. It's flu-like symptoms, feel achy, or their face will be flush. And the best thing that the person can do is get outside to some clear, fresh air. And that's what we recommend whenever somebody calls in to 911 and says, hey, I think I'm, carbon monoxide. And that's what they'll tell them, say, go outside and wait for the fire department to arrive, get out into some fresh air.
Yeah.
But
I guess ultimately having those detectors are very important,
Oh, yeah, for sure. And sometimes you'll see people that will, they'll start their car in the garage to warm it up in these cold months. And that's a big no-no, because those fumes are, and they'll say, well, I've cracked the garage door and it's going out. Yeah, but you're still letting that carbon monoxide get into your home and permeate into the dwelling. So, that's never a good thing.
We're visiting with DJ Corcoran. He's with the Knoxville Fire Department. We're talking about fire safety here in January. When we come back, I want to get into things, risks we have when we cook, especially outdoor grills and some of those kind of things. I'm going to tell you a story when we come back. You're not going to be very proud of me, DJ, but I had a real problem with a pellet grill, actually. I love my pellet grill, and I had a problem. I'm lucky it wasn't worse than it was. So I want to get into some of those things as well. We're also going to have our dollars and cents segment. How should you be backing up your financial records, and what about your emergency preparedness for if you were to have a house fire? So stay with us. We'll have that on our dollars and cents segment. This is More Living with Jim Brogan right here on News Talk 98.7 WOK.
his weekly radio show, television news appearances, and adult education classes taught at the University of Tennessee and Pellissippi State Community College, Jim taps into his extensive knowledge and experience to address issues important to living your best retirement. Join Jim every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI, and visit him online at broganfinancial.com. And now, here's the host of More Living, Jim Brogan.
This is More Living with Jim Brogan right here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI, where it's all about living the best years of your life your way. We're talking about fire safety, very, very important topic. There's more house fires typically this time of year than at any other time of the year. And we're visiting with DJ Corker, and he is with the Knoxville Fire Department. We're going to talk about cooking and grilling and some of the problems that we see there and how you can prevent that. Before we get back to DJ, however, it is time for Dollars and Cents.
Want to be sure you are getting the most out of your retirement? For all the years of your retirement? That's the primary goal of More Living with Jim Brogan and our Dollars and Cents segment, where we provide you with an important financial tip that will help positively impact the quality of your life in retirement. And now, here's Jim with this week's Dollars and Cents tip.
Let's talk about emergency preparedness and how to protect your financial records. What if you do have a home fire? How can you plan for the unexpected? So I have a few tips here. One, be sure you save important records in a secure location, especially hard to replace records, originals. You know, you could do a bank safe deposit box. I'm a big fan personally of a home safe. Now, if you have a home safe, it needs to be rated to 1700 degrees. And that, you know, always something you can get your hands on after something has happened, it potentially in your home. Now, it's also a good idea to have a financial disaster kit, you know, a sturdy portable folder or a box that you can take with you if you had to evacuate suddenly that can help you manage your finances from another location. So you could have a copy in there of everything you have in your safe or in your safe deposit box that give you your records and things. And then obviously keep all of your backups to computers and scan documents and keep those in a safe place, in a safe deposit box or in a safe at the house. Now then another thing would be to protect your access to cash. You could, you know, obviously everybody needs to have an emergency fund. It's always a good idea to have extra cash at home in the safe. And not only big bills, it's always a good idea to have smaller bills, especially even 20s, because fewer and fewer people will take $100 bills. And don't use up all your credit. Always have room on your credit so that if you get in a bind and you need to use your credit card, you've got ample room for emergency use on your credit card. And then just a couple of other tips. Be a good idea, make a hard copy of everything in your wallet and scan that and keep that in your backups in your safe or your safe deposit box. Obviously, make sure you always have electronic access to all of your financial accounts. And be sure to tell somebody else in your family or a friend where everything is. What if you can't be reached and people need to get to your stuff? So be sure that somebody knows where you keep all of your information, and then make an inventory of your home possessions. You know, that could be a video or a photo documentation, copies of purchase receipts as much as possible, and keep those things digitally backed up in your safe or your safe deposit box so you can show that if in the unfortunate event something happened, you can show exactly everything that you owned prior to that happening.
That's our Dollars and Cents segment for this week. You can find this week's Dollars and Cents segment and others by visiting broganfinancial.com. Check
us out at broganfinancial.com for information. We're always releasing blogs, and other resources. Go to broganfinancial.com, click on resources. Also, my upcoming class is at the University of Tennessee on January 28th and February 4th. Financial Survival for Retirement. It's a 2-part class, 2 successive Thursday evenings. And you can either come live at the Downtown Conference Center. We're doing a full CDC protocol with distancing. Everybody be wearing masks, including me. However, if you're uncomfortable with that, we are also offering that class online virtually via Zoom. We'll be simulcasting both. So you could either attend live or via Zoom. You can go to financialsurvivalforretirement.com and find out more information. You can download a syllabus and also click to register for all of our upcoming classes, both at the University of Tennessee and Pellissippi State. Again, these classes, if you're retired or getting ready to retire, go to my website, broganfinancial.com, and click on classes, and you can get our full schedule there. We're visiting this morning with DJ Corcoran. He's with the Knoxville Fire Department. We're talking about the very, very important issue of fire safety. Let's talk about cooking, DJ. That cooking has become my new hobby with the pandemic. With the pandemic, it really has. I've always been into grilling your staples, steaks, burgers, and chicken. And I've always taken a lot of pride in that. My dad taught me how to grill growing up. Lately, since the pandemic, I've really gotten into smoking and slow cooking and doing even some more things in the kitchen. How often are home fire situations caused by things in the kitchen or even outdoors with our grills?
Mm-hmm. Well, usually, the grills are more of a summertime thing that you see. Fires from, just from the either propane, the gas grills not having a good connection, some things like that maintenance should take care of any or prevent any fire like that. But some of the things that that we will see is somebody heats up a grill and it's too close to vinyl siding or wood siding on a house, and just that radiant heat will cause a fire on the outside of the home, and then to climb up and get into the eaves and then into the attic. We've seen that happen. We've seen some inside. We've seen some fires from grease. We're in the South. Everybody likes to cook with grease, and that are preventable. A flare up, the grease gets too hot and it ignites. But people will make a big mistake and try to throw water on that. And it will expand 1,700 times. The water will when it's introduced into
So
fire.
what's the best thing to throw? So what is the best thing to throw on there?
Well,
salt. Typically, I would take salt,
baking soda, or just keep a lid to smother it. A fire has to have three things. It's going to have fuel, heat, and oxygen. You take any one of those out of the equation, and the fire goes out. So what you're essentially doing when you're putting baking soda or salt or putting a lid on there, you're depriving that flame of oxygen, so you're smothering it. But you don't want, and the other thing, if you put water on a fire, not on a grease fire, but on another fire, you're actually cooling it. So you're taking heat out of that triangle. So, but on a stovetop, if you're cooking, with something, a good thing to have is some baking soda, salt, or a lid, an ABC extinguisher, and that's gonna cover just about anything that you might, that might flame up in a kitchen. And a big mistake, a lot of people they'll think, well, extinguisher's kind of unsightly. I'll put it under the sink out of the way. You want to have that extinguisher near a means of egress, or toward a back door or toward a hallway that's out of your kitchen. You don't want to have that extinguisher right next to the source of the flame, right next to the stove. You want to have it away.
That's a great point. I mean, we typically have always kept ours. I mean, when you get, you keep them under your sink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's where a lot of people. How often should we check our fire extinguishers?
You want to check those every so often to make sure that they're still charged, that the arrow is still in the green. As long as the arrow is in the green, and sometimes you can take them and just sort of turn them upside down, because some of them they'll have it's a dry chemical that's in there, and sometimes that chemical can get caked up a little bit. So you want to kind of flip it ever so often just to make sure that it doesn't, sit on the bottom and become, useless.
On the grill, before we leave that, I do want to ask you about grease buildup in the grills. A lot of times, especially with gas grills, people don't really think of cleaning out their gas grill a lot, especially if they have a plate that protects the burners. A lot of grills will have, plates or bars that will protect the burners from grease, but then you've still got a lot of buildup on the sides and even could in the roof of the grill. Talk a little bit about, and what's the easiest way to clean out a grill? I mean, is it okay to use oven cleaner? Some people say that's too dangerous. You shouldn't use that on the inside of a grill.
Yeah, well, the best thing is just don't let it get to that point where it's got so much buildup. Just to kind of, after each use, wipe it down and clean it down before it gets that build-up grease and carbon particles in there, because those can become dangerous. I know we were talking earlier about lighting a grill, and we've seen some accidents, not really fire accidents, but injuries from grills where somebody might have the lid down on a grill and they've got the gas turned on, and it's filling that chamber with vapors, and then they're trying to ignite it, and then all of a sudden it hits and sparks, and it'll blow the top up, and it may hit. We've seen it where it's actually hit people and knocked them out. I mean, it's like a miniature explosion. And I know you were talking about one of the chip burners, the
pellet grills. We were talking about that off air, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you had an incident where it was building up. It wasn't gas, but it could have been the igniter went out and it was built up with smoke in there. Smoke is combustible. People don't realize that. If you've ever watched a big major fire and you'll see a big cloud, and all of a sudden it looks like like thunder, or not like thunder, but it looks like lightning, the whole cloud will just ignite into a flame because those are actually unburned particles of carbon, and they're ignitable. On a smaller scale, you could see that you light a candle and you light that wick and let it burn for a little bit, and then you blow that smoke, or you blow that wick out, that flame, and then you can take a match or a lighter and hit that trail of smoke that's coming off of that wick, and it's like a lightning strike. It'll actually reignite that smoke back down to the source. So
I had never really thought of that, and I was telling you that because I had a problem on Christmas Day. Actually, I was doing a prime rib, not Christmas Day, Thanksgiving, and I was doing a prime rib, and I had an issue where the thing went out, and I had a huge fire in my grill, basically, bottom line. And you were saying that all that smoke in there, with the way it was trying to ignite the pellets and pushing them all into the burner or into the fire pot, could have ignited that smoke and been what caught everything on fire. I never even thought of that. So with our smokers, I guess somebody who uses a smoker a lot got to keep the inside of that thing cleaned, right? And keep that grease buildup from becoming too severe.
Yeah, and just let that lid open. If you're ever in that situation, let it clear out before you try to reignite it again.
Absolutely. So we're visiting with DJ Corcoran. He's with the Knoxville Fire Department. When we come back, I want to talk about the importance of an escape plan. We don't think about that a lot, but it's so important, especially those of us that have kids in the house. But really for all of us, we should always have an escape plan, know exactly what to do if something were to happen and we're in the house. So don't go away as you're listening to More Living with Jim Brogan right here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
Thank you for listening to More Living with Jim Brogan. If you miss any of today's show or want to listen to it again, visit BroganFinancial.com, where you can access the podcast and other educational materials to help you in your journey through retirement. And now, here's Senior Market Advisor Magazine's 2011 National Advisor of the Year and host of More Living, Jim Brogan.
We're talking about fire safety this week, such an important topic this time of year. As you listen to More Living with Jim Brogan here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. DJ Corcoran is with the Knoxville Fire Department. He is their community relations officer. And we're getting some great tips. If you've missed part of this show, I urge you. You can also hear it this afternoon at 3 p.m. We air every Saturday at 9 a.m. and at 3 p.m. You can also check out the podcast next week on our website. We'll have it up by Monday. You can listen to the entire podcast. DJ, let's talk about an escape plan. I know fire safety, that's so important. What should the plan entail? And what about those who have multi-story homes and small children?
We call that EDITH, EDITH, and that's exit drills in the home. And what we recommend when we do that is making sure that everybody has at least two means of egress from their bedroom or from their home. And children, you need to make sure that they know how to open the windows of their bedroom to be able to escape if need be. If their first means of egress down the hallway is blocked by fire or smoke, that they can climb out the window. Make sure you have a meeting spot. Make sure that everybody knows where that meeting spot is, because there's nothing worse than seeing a parent out there running around and firemen are trying to come and put the fire out and not knowing where all their family members are. That's it ramps everything up, and we go into recovery or rescue mode instead of fighting the fire. But if we can, when we get there and we see everybody out by the mailbox and we know that everybody's out safe, and you ask the parent, is everybody, yeah, well, okay, then we can go about our business and we can have that fire, knocked out in just a matter of minutes.
Great.
But, another thing is know your address. A lot of times, like during the holidays, and we're still in the holiday season, where people come and stay, and it might not be you that's calling 911. It may be somebody that's visiting you that may be calling 911, and they know they're at Jim's house, but they don't know the numerical address or the street. So, make sure that everybody knows the address of where they're staying, where they're at. I make it a habit of, if I'm going into a building or visiting somewhere, to know that address and the street, whereas if I have to call 911 for whatever reason, I can give them accurate information and they know where to come.
Yeah, absolutely. DJ, if someone lives outside the city limits, their homes are typically protected by contracted services, and many people make the choice to not subscribe to the fire service. So does that mean that, if they had a fire, would the contracted service show up?
They will. And here in Knox County, they're protected by rural metro. And some people choose to subscribe to their service, and some people may not, as you mentioned. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to show up. They're going to come. It just means they get hit
with a rather large bill.
Sometimes that happens. Sometimes the company, and I hate to speak for another agency, but I just know that sometimes that company will say you can either pay this bill or you can join and be a subscriber to our service. So sometimes they're nice and they'll give you that option.
DJ, we're almost out of time. Firefighters to me are heroes. They put their lives at risk to help save people's lives and our homes. What's the best way the community can support firefighters?
I think just practice. Practice the things that we talked about. I think that's a good, good indication that you're taking those things serious. We love to see people, but we hate to see them in those conditions, under those circumstances. We love for folks to, right now it's kind of odd because we're in this COVID kind of a mess, but used to we'd say, come by the fire station, just say, hey, wave, blow your horn, wave at the firemen. But like I said, right now everybody's kind of locked up in their places, and they're not really out publicly seeing people. But that's what I used to tell people: just toot your horn, blow when you pass by a fire station, and say hello to the firemen.
Great. Just express your support. DJ Corcoran, you've been with the city of Knoxville for over 25 years. And thank you for all that, your commitment to the community and all that you've done over that time. And thank you for coming on the show with us this morning.
Well, thank you for having us, Jim. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. That's DJ Corcoran on fire safety. He's with the Knoxville Fire Department. Thank you for tuning in this week. Thank you, Chris, running the board. Thank you, Jill, producing the show. You've been listening to More Living with Jim Brogan, only on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
The views expressed by Jim Brogan and his guests are not that of Cumulus Media. Any discussion of financial, legal, and tax planning strategies is not intended to be individualized advice and is general in nature. Always consult with your advisor for advice specific to your needs. This program's content does not represent a recommendation of any particular security, strategy, or investment by Jim Brogan or Brogan Financial Incorporated.